So, I mean, now I'm the only one speaking, but everything is getting recorded also at the end. So I have been thinking, and again, I want to give you a big yesher koach for coming on these calls, because it gives me reason to get chizuk and to think about the situation that we're in right now. One of the things I started thinking about Pesach, because as we're getting closer to Pesach, as a shul, we're going to have to find different solutions for Pesach, but also to try to understand, Benisan nigalu v'benisan atidim ligael. The Midrash tells us that in the month of Nisan, we were redeemed and we were freed the first time in the first Geula, and in the month of Nisan, we will also be redeemed in the final Geula, Benisan atidin leigael, in the future. And we're entering that month of Nisan, the month of the Geula, the month of redemption. And I wanted to look back at the story of how we were redeemed, and I found something that is fascinating. It's very basic, but yet so fascinating, which is the first night, the first Seder, where Am Yisrael is coming together and they're about to leave Mitzrayim. And obviously it's experiencing the 10 Makos and the plagues that the Mitzrayim are experiencing. And the Jewish people need to go through that cleansing process. It's Nagofla Mitzrayim and Rapoli Yisrael. It's already the beginning. In the entire last year, they were perfecting themselves, making sure not to speak Lashon Hara. They kept on to their names, to their identity. Not everyone was able to fully perfect themselves, and therefore we know that 4/5 did not make it. But then there came the final stage of them coming out of Mitzrayim. But right before they came out of Mitzrayim, in fact, the first Seder ever experienced by the Jewish people was in self-quarantine. The first Seder that the Jewish people experienced in Mitzrayim, there was an Isser to leave the house. You were not allowed to leave the house. Ish al yetzim imkomo ad boker. You were not allowed to leave the house until the morning. Why? Because outside there was the Negev. There was the bin gofo tam. If you look in the Parshios and Shmos over there, in Parak Yud Beis, there was a Negev outside. We know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he could differentiate between good and bad. But however, there was also a Magefa taking place outside. The Magefa does not differentiate between good people and bad people, as Rashi over there says. The Magefa could hit anybody. It could even hit a plague, could hit anybody, even a righteous person. It does not differentiate between a righteous person and somebody who's not righteous. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu could differentiate. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu was smiting the firstborns. However, there was also a plague that was taking place in Mitzrayim. And I think we allude to that also in the Haggadah. We say, Lemakem Mitzrayim bivechorehem, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu hit Mitzrayim with their Bechorim. Not only that did HaKadosh Baruch Hu smite the firstborns, but there was a plague that spread throughout the entire Egypt because of the many deaths of the firstborn. And therefore, no one was allowed to leave the house. But I think that it was much deeper than that. It wasn't just that the firstborns were getting killed, and if you're outside, you might get killed as well. I think part of the process of redemption was that the Jewish people needed to be back inside their own homes, each one with their families, before they break free. Before we go out into freedom the following day, we need to experience a period of quarantine. Now, for some reason in our generation, we might be needing a longer quarantine than just one night. Hopefully one night should be enough. But there was a period of quarantine where families were not allowed to mix even with other families. Families were definitely not allowed to mix with the Egyptians and with the non-Jews. In fact, we were taking their avodah zarah and we were burning it. We were eating it. We were showing that this is not really what matters to us anymore. What matters to us is doing the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the will of God. And therefore, that was part of the process of coming out of Mitzrayim, is disconnecting from what was normal life back in Egypt. In fact, removing ourselves from it, taking what society worshipped and saying that is no longer important anymore. What's important is to do the will of Hashem, to discuss who we are, to connect to our identity. What does it mean to be a Jew? Why do we want to leave? Where do we want to go? Why is it important for us to leave? Is it just because of the slavery? Do we have a mission? Are we trying to accomplish something greater for the world? Do we have a destination where we're heading? And all of that was discussed that first night. That's what the night before the coming of the Geula was all about. It was about being inside your home, disconnecting from your surrounding society and culture, and connecting just to the Jewish identity, to who we really are, what we stand for, and what we represent. In a certain way, we're going through something very similar right now. We live in a world where the norm, even the norm in our life, was a little bit not so normal, but that was the norm. The norm was certain idols that society worshipped, which was obviously manifest itself in the physicality. And now Hashem is putting the world on quarantine and sort of on like reboot and restart and refocus. And that sort of gives us the time, I think, as the Jewish people, right in the eve of the month of Nisan Nigalu and Nisan Atidim Ligael, that in the month of Nisan, it's the month of the potential to have the redemption. Again, like we said yesterday, no one here is a prophet. We don't know if this ends, with Mashiach coming. We don't know. We daven for it. We pray for it. And we know that just as quickly as Hashem brought it onto the world, Hashem could take it away from the world very, very quickly. But we're not just praying for it to go away. We're praying for a much better world after it. For us, that means a world of the Geula, a world of Mashiach, a world of coming together. And the time period of quarantine is a time period of really understanding what life is all about, really understanding who we are. What does it mean to be a Jew? Why should we be saved? What does Yemos HaMashiach really mean? Yemos HaMashiach doesn't mean this something that's removed from society. The way the Rambam just brings it down, it's regular, normal life, just living it, right? Ein bein Yemos HaMashiach l'chai olam haba, l'chai olam hazeh, l'shibud malchius bilvad. Says the Rambam, according to the Rambam, the difference between Yemos HaMashiach and nowadays, it's the same life, just that it's a life that we are no longer under the sovereignty and the rule of America and Russia and all these big countries, but rather the Jewish people are in control of their destiny, and we live on a more spiritual type of life experience. And in a certain way, these days, it's almost been a week. It actually has been already a week since Purim, a little bit more than a week already. We're getting on to 2 weeks. But it's been, and it seems like it's going to get a little bit more serious before it gets more lenient. And we might be in this for another week or two. We might be through Pesach in this. We're going to see how it's going to play out. I know that the chief rabbinate called for a day of fasting on Erev Yom Kippur Katan, which is the eve of Rosh Chodesh. There's a concept to say, Erev Rosh Chodesh, we say Yom Kippur Katan. It's like a prayer, which is like a little Yom Kippur. Some people tend to fast until Chatzos, so they called for a fast day. They said that maybe you could go to Shul with 10 people. Some people are saying, why are you saying to go to Shul with 10 people? You're going against the whole thing. So I'm not getting into the details of our Shul is obviously still staying closed. But this is, I find that we're going through a very similar time period like when we left Mitzrayim. The concept of a self-quarantine, the eve of the Geula, is something that you see mefurish in the Psukim, in Sefer Shmos. When before the Jewish people left Mitzrayim, they had to be in their homes with their values, with their families, and only the following day. And that was throughout the entire night. And then only when dawn broke through, nighttime represents a time of when things are not clear to us and things are not so understandable to us. But then when dawn comes, when the morning comes, when clarity comes, we leave our quarantine and we're zocha to leave Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim comes from the word meitzarim, that we're restricted. We live whatever has been restricting us in our life until now, and we're able to break free. one of the things that I started looking into is also, and this is what I said that maybe I'm still developing it, is realizing that's the first time that there is a negef in the Torah, when we were in self-quarantine because outside there was a magefa. Where are the other times that we find that there was a magefa, a dever, or a magefa just means something that is contagious, that a lot of people are dying from it, some sort of plague. And we find that word, and we find that there were times of magefa for the Jewish people throughout the story of the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. So the first time that there is this magefa is when we leave Mitzrayim, but that magefa is not for the Jewish people. That magefa is on the Egyptians, and that's why we're not allowed to leave the house. And therefore, from there, by the way, the Gemara learns out that whenever there's a plague outside, do not leave the house. There's a din to stay inside the house. It's not just a Misrad HaBriyut. It's already brought down in the Gemara in Baba Kama, Daf Samech Amud Beis. The Gemara brings down 3 different psukim why you have to stay inside your house when there is a plague. And it says that you have to stay inside your house, not just if outside, even bechadarim eima, even if there is panic inside, you still should stay inside. Even if you have 5 kids at home for over a week and there's panic inside, you still have to stay inside. I think that's the omek upshot over there, bechadarim eima, that there is eima inside the chadarim. But so I looked into where there is a magefa. We find that there is a magefa hitting the Jewish people. One by Chet HaEgel. There was a magefa after that spread to the people who there was no Eidim, there was no Hasra, but they sinned in the Chet HaEgel, so therefore the magefa knocked them out. So that's people who are serving Avodah Zarah. We also find that there was a magefa with the people, the Meraglim, who spoke Lashon Hara against Eretz Yisrael. There was also a magefa after Korach was nifter, people who spoke Lashon Hara against the Jewish leadership that was chosen by Hashem. And there's also a magefa in Parshas Pinchas after they did Gilui Arayot, after they went after their desires. I don't know how this plays out, but for me it seems clear, and I don't know if we'll further develop it, but for me it seems clear that when we go after our golden calves, and society today has definitely, what is considered normal to us, what is normal in the world today, there's definitely a chase after the golden calves of nowadays of money and fame and success and making it big and making it bigger, and it's not big enough. And a lot of times it manifests itself even in the Jewish community in big lavish weddings and lavish celebrations and a lot of excess. That's definitely has taken a hit. And another thing that the world is definitely plagued with is we're deep in our Gilui Arayot. The world is definitely deep in Gilui Arayot right now, in inappropriate relationships, and that has become a norm. And now everyone is in quarantine and needs to stay away from that as well. And then for us internally as the Jewish people, and we've been hit by definitely this golden Avodah Zarah, also by Gilui Arayot in the Jewish community. And then finally, the last 2, which were really Lashon Hara against Jewish leadership, against Rabbanim, Lashon Hara against Eretz Yisrael. Those are the 2 other Lashon Haras that brought out a plague within Am Yisrael, is people who did not, who spoke against Eretz Yisrael, who didn't come to Eretz Yisrael, who didn't want to come into Eretz Yisrael, who said it's better for us to stay in the desert. Maybe it's better to go back to Mitzrayim than to come to Eretz Yisrael. And who said that Moshe is the right leader? And maybe we're all the right leaders. Who needs Rabbanim anyways? And they spoke Lashon Hara against the Torah leadership, against Eretz Yisrael. And I think that's also an awakening moment for the Jewish people. All 4 of these plagues that we find in the Torah are something this is something that I've been thinking about. I'm not sure if it's there or not. I would love to hear if you have more. I'm going to unmute everybody. I would love to hear if you have more ideas about that, or if you feel that there's more magefot that maybe I missed. But would love to hear your feedback. And anyways, it's always chizuk to speak with you.
Was there a Megaifa after they asked for quail, or just they died from eating it?
From where? What are you, Dina? Again, what you're asking about the Meraglim?
Love.
No, when they asked for meat I think it was before the man, they asked for meat.
Right.
And
So that wasn't a Magefa. That was not a Magefa. That was just the people who ate a lot. It was Adaina Basar Ben Shinahem, and they were a Magefa means that there is this outbreak, a pandemic that people. It was in the time of Pinchas. It says that 24,000 people died. By Korach, it says that 14,000 people died. It was Aaron was able to stop it with the Ktoret. That's what's called a Magefa. So
Marilyn Schweitzer's on it. Yeah.
These are okay. We have just a few more minutes. These are thoughts that I wanted to share. The first thought is really the thought that really hit me. By looking at the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, there was this process of self-quarantine before Yetziat Mitzrayim. And I think we're going through a similar experience, and who knows, maybe this is a time that is mesugal for, for coming out of this quarantine and finding a better world on the other side of it. Yeah, Chavlei Mashiach.
The cure for the one of the Magefas was Ketores. Aaron comes out with a Ketoret. What's our equivalent today? Well, what should we be producing as an anti?
So we discussed this on the first day. The Zohar in Parshas Vayakel, in last Parsha, the Zohar brings down that the Ktoret is a Sgula to finish the Magefa. And since we don't have the Ktoret today, he says there's a Sgula in saying the Parsha of the Ktoret. The Parsha of the Ktoret, I also mentioned it in my last Parsha year when this thing was starting, that there's a Sgula in the Parsha of the Ktoret to say it. Some say to say from a klaf. So we have it at the end of davening of Shacharis. We also have it in the Korbanot. It's actually the parasha that we have in the Korbanot to say that entire parasha. It's a Sgula to say it. The Faradim say it also before Mincha. And some say it's recommended for even us Ashkenazim during this time period to say it during Shacharit. And we have more time. We're davening at home. So to say it in Shacharit, to also say it in Mincha, the Parashat HaKtoret, and it's a Sgula for Shmira, for protection when there's a Magefa. Yeah.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Rabbi, do you have time for a 2-minute story?
Sure, Ronnie. Why don't you share it with us?
There we go. This will be a quickie. They tell the story about a town in Europe years ago that had a watchmaker who passed away. And several months went by, and slowly people's watches and clocks began to go on the fritz, and they needed to have them repaired, but there was no one to repair them. Finally, a young entrepreneurial watchmaker moved into town, and everybody lined up in front of his store. And at the end of the first day, the only watches that he was able to fix were those that people had continued to wind even though they were no longer working.
Wow.
That's the story.
Beautiful.
That's great. Very good.
Beautiful.
Yasher Koach.
That's our job, to keep on winding our clocks and to keep on winding our tefillos even though the shuls aren't running, and to keep on processing the real test of midos, the real test of chesed, the real test of tefillah and of Talmud Torah. It's not just in the public sphere. The real test is at home. The home is always the test of who we really are, because when we're outside, we always put our best foot out, forward. It's embarrassing to be angry in front of other people. It's embarrassing to do inappropriate things in front of other people. When we are at home, when things are a little bit tough and it's just us, and it's us, me and my wife, or just me and myself, and how do I behave during that time period? That's really the test of life. And that's the test that humanity is going through right now. How do we behave at home when we're just us at home and alone? In our tefillah, in our Talmud Torah, and in our chesed.
Relationships.
I think
That's
that's
the
what's
story.
unwinding the clock.
I'm going to take an opportunity
Yes, Mark.
to do a little commercial. You got an email today that basically lists all the programmings that we have on a daily basis or a one-off basis. That's in your email today, and that's probably how you got the link to today's session. Immediately after following the rabbi's shir here at 5:30, there's another link to Charlie Katz, who's going to do a musical show. It's called Standards of 30s, 40s, and 50s. Those of you who were at the show a few months ago from the Women's League, that there was a terrific show in which he focused on John Denver and Bob Dylan. This one's going to be a little bit farther back than that, going back to the 30s, 40s, and 50s, music that I'm sure we all know and appreciate. So that's 5:30 today, and the link is at the bottom of this email.
That's amazing.
What's that?
I also like to
Mesmerized that
say-
you know music from the 30s.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
We
all know it. Those that survived.
How much you
All
recommend.
these records.
We're still amazed when people ask us, who are the Beatles?
That's right.
I just want to dedicate this learning to my mother, whose yahrzeit is today, Rosa Bat Yecheskel Yaakov Halevi.
Rosa Bas Yecheskel Yaakov Alevi, all of the learning that we did today should be Ilui to the Neshama for her. It should be, I'm sure she's getting a lot of nachas.
Amen. Tודה רבה.
Okay, we have just the last few minutes here on, and we have around 4 minutes left on this call, and soon, right after this call, we're gonna have a special show, a special presentation, a little music time. So if anybody has any questions or anybody wants to share any thought over the next 3 minutes, this is the platform.
Is the next show right after you, or do you have to go to another?
Yeah, you have to go to
place?
another link. It's in your email that we sent out on the Shul email. Mark sent it out, and it's a new link because we're gonna log off of this call, and then it's gonna be a new link to the music show.
It's another channel.
That's
I
right.
have a word about commercial as well.
Yes, Moshe.
And that is, we just got through spending 45,000 shekel for Ma'ot Chitim for about 175, 180 people. If it can spend a little bit more towards Charlie, it'll be appreciated.
Yes, I second that. Thank you, Moshe, for bringing that up. It is a very, very crucial time. I know many families, and some have turned to me, and some I just know about because I know even in our yeshiva they put all of the rabbeim on chalat, which means chufsha lelo tashlum. A lot of institutions, organizations, a lot of people that normally had a parnasa do not have one this coming Pesach. They're not sure how they're gonna make it through Pesach. And as Moshe said, a lot of them turn to our shul to help them get through the heavy expenses of Passover. And our shul is known to be a shul of chesed and a shul that gives out with a nice hand. And Moshe and Mark are spearheading this. And if you have any meiser money, any ma'ot chitin, it's definitely a sgula, tzedakah tatzil mimaves, to sgula to transfer this to the shul. Just when you write the check to the shul, earmark it for ma'ot chitin so that Moshe and Mark know exactly where to send it. And it all goes, 100% of it goes directly to poor people. That some of them are from our neighborhood, others are from Yerushalayim. 100% of the money goes directly to tzedakah.
But again,
Ads can be given a credit card instead of checks, and that might work a little faster.
yes, definitely it's a better way to go because cash is difficult to handle today.
Okay,
Cash and
so
checks.
what's the best way to do it, Mark? They should call you, give you a credit card
No,
number?
they call No. They call the Shul number on the Shul list. They call the Shul number, and then they select option number 2. That gets into Charlie, and he takes care of it.
Amazing,
All right, so
amazing.
we're gonna leave. We're gonna break this meeting up.
So how many people?
Thank you, everybody. This was a real pleasure again. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you all tomorrow at the same time, 5 o'clock. We're now going to be logging off of this, and everyone can stay tuned and to re-log in to Charlie Katz's show, which is going to take place right now. Okay.
See you
Take care, everybody. See you tomorrow. Looking forward.
tomorrow.
Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Litraot. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.